Welcome to Ripcaster. My name's John Nelson. We're a hi-fi dealer based between Reading and Oxford in the UK. Today's video is all about upgrading a Linn Klimax LP12 to the latest Bedrok Plinth. So in front of me here I have got a current top of the range Klimax LP12. It's got a standard fluted oak plinth. It's got a Keel Subchassis, an Ekos SE tonearm, an ecstatic cartridge, a Radikal II power supply, a Urika II Phono stage, which presents its signal on this exact link over an RJ45 connection, and we've also got two connections to the power supply, the external Radikal power supply, and one is for the motor and the other is for the Urika Phono stage, which is built into the device. So we're basically going to take all the components off this LP12 and put them into the new Bedrok Plinth. Let's put the LP12 on one side and we'll open up the Bedrok Plinth now. Comes to us in a slightly redesigned packaging for LP12. I'm not quite sure whether this is going to be replicated in the rest of the range, but there's certainly some nice improvements to the way the product is packaged. Okay, so this is the Bedrok Plinth. Significantly heavier than the conventional plinths, mainly because of the material is much denser than wood. I think if you listen to some of the forums, they might tell you it's a piece of plywood, but it's far from that. Okay, so there is the new Bedrok Plinth. It is supplied with a top plate fitted, unlike the original plinths, and that's mainly because the interface between the top plate and the plinth is slightly different, and also you've got these slightly rounded corners here, slightly rounded to fit in here and square off here. Around the other way you can see the way that this material is a laminated material. It's many layers compressed and compressed and compressed, makes it very dense, very rigid, very stiff, which is perfect for what you're looking for in a turntable plinth. So all the energy that's been picked up from the grooves in the record is being transferred into a signal being received in the cartridge rather than being lost in the mechanics of the turntable. And this material is machined, so as you can see it's been routed out here in a similar way you would do with metal. Another interesting change compared to a standard plinth is that all the fixings now are, instead of wood screws, these are inserts which take machine screws rather than using the wood itself to hold everything. So it's a lot more precise in its geometry, a lot more rigid, etc. What we will do is we'll put that on one side and we'll switch back to the Klimax LP12 and we'll start to take that apart. So as with all LP12 servicing builds, a jig is essential. This allows us to work on the top and the bottom of the deck. So we've put it in the jig. The outer platter I've taken off, and when we move the turntable we obviously put a piece of protective material under here just to stop the bearing moving around. So the first thing I want to do ideally is take off my tonearm, and to do that I'm going to drop the Urika from the base unit so I can free the signal cable off the tonearm. So to do that I'm going to use our scissor lift, which just makes life easy. So we'll just put this under here. So I've got my scissor lift in place. I'm just going to use a standard screwdriver to remove these screws that hold the baseboard in. So I've changed the camera angle, and what we're going to do is remove these screws that hold the baseboard in. So at this point, if I undo this, the Urika baseboard will come down like so. You can't see it, but oh yeah, you can. Here you go. So this is the signal cable coming from the bottom of the tonearm. There is a grub screw in the bottom of the collar here, so I need to use a little hex to allow me to then release the signal cable. Okay, so if I add a little bit of light in here, you can see the bottom of the tonearm here, and you can see this little Allen key that I've got in here. I just slacken that off, and that will allow me to release that. We've also got this earthing strap here that I need to undo, so I'll just get a socket and undo that. Leave that little lamp there, then you can see what's going on. So the baseboard Urika is now free, so I can lift this out of the way. Now back on the top of the turntable, we've now disconnected this signal cable here, so I'm just going to use a grub screw here, which will allow me to lift out the Ekos SE tonearm. Okay, so the Ekos SE, obviously the counterweight's been taken off, ecstatic cartridge. Okay, next we'll take the belt. We could have done this before, of course, and then lift out the inner platter. Next I'm going to just put this bung in the top of the carousel bearing. That will stop the oil running out when we turn the turntable over the other way. Whilst we're on the top of the deck, we can remove the tachometer for the Urika. So that is, there's two signal cables, so we'll just remove those first. And those we can feed back under the deck. And similarly, we'll take off the tachometer. It's just two screws here. And what we're going to do now, we'll turn, now that we've got our bung in here, we'll turn the deck the other way up when we can work on the other side. And there's no real order to this, but we'll continue disconnecting the motor supply. So that's the control lead that goes to the switch on the front. We'll undo these cable clamps at the rear here. And that is the tachometer cable that we disconnected from the other side. Next we can take the motor out. There's two screws here and here that we'll get from underneath. Okay, so that's our motor removed. Next we'll take the control switch out, but eventually we can get that out. So that's the switch that controls the 33 or 45. So next there's an earthing strap here, so we'll deal with that. Let's take that off. Next we'll take the cross brace off. So again, there's not really any order to disassembly other than it's all got to come off. Now we've just got the 3 suspension studs with the springs and bushes on. And now we can just take the suspension components off. So there's 3 washers, mudguard washers, 3 lower bushes, 3 springs, and at this point, well, let's take the outer upper bushes out as well. That's 1, 2, and 3. You can see the bottom of the carousel bearing here, and what I can do now is just lift this like so, and then out through our Keel Subchassis, and we'll compare this plinth with the Bedrok plinth shortly. Side by side here, and you can see some of the details, differences between whether you can pick out whether it's got slightly rounded corners here or not. I'll have a look. Maybe that corner and that corner, or that corner. Yes, slightly rounded radius on there, but all the rest of the fixings are exactly the same. The studs for mounting the suspension are there. Obviously there's wood screws on the original plinth. These are now set screws with Torx rather than the crossheads. And you can see here on the wooden plinth, these are the wooden inserts that are glued into the side of the plinth to give it its rigidity. If you compare that with the actual Bedrok plinth, this has obviously been machined from a solid piece of material, and so you can see that these brace points, they differ in thickness, they go much further down, they've got radiuses in these corners here. A completely different level of engineering going into this compared to these cabinet skills that have been used to make the original plinth. We'll turn it over and then you can see the other side. So again, on the original plinth, these are all wood screws just going directly into the wood surrounds. Compare that with these inserts here, which allows to use machine screws to fix everything. Same cable entry and exit points, power, signal cables, etc. And again, you can see how much more detail here about how it's been machined, and these pockets machined into the side of the material to give exactly the shape, etc. required to fit the components. So different thicknesses, so there's a different thickness here to here, etc. Very clever. Alright, so now that we've looked at the plinths, we'll put them on one side, we'll get the jig out, and we'll reassemble all the components that were originally on the original LP12 into the new Bedrok. So it's just the reverse process now. We've got the Bedrok in the jig, and the first thing we have to do is remove these protective, all these ferrules, don't know. Now the first thing I'm actually going to fit is the motor, since I've got access to it from here. So I'm just going to undo this cable clamp. Notice that I'm using a Torx screw here, screwdriver. All the screws are all uniform now, and all Torx a welcome standardization. The motor cable is going to feed out the back of here. The motor is going to go in there like so, and the signal cable is going to feed through the hole there. So the motor basically installed, signal cable to the switch. We can put the subchassis in now. Let's do is thread this up through here. Like so. So that's our subchassis in. Now, slightly optional at this point, the cross brace is obviously designed to fit one, but the actual material is rigid enough so you don't need it. Sorry, Linn Technical suggests you don't need to fit it, but all the videos of everybody else fitting one, including Linn, shows it with one. So we'll carry on and play that game, and we'll fit the cross brace as before. So that's going to go on there like so. Okay, so we've got everything done on the bottom of the deck. I think what I'm going to do now is turn it over the other way and we'll work on the top of the deck. One thing that you notice is that it is substantially heavier. Motor is in the right position. I'm just going to tighten these up to refit the tachometer. That's going to go on there like that. Connect or reconnect the blue and the red wires to the tachometer. So I forgot to press record at this point and didn't capture the setting up of the suspension. We do have that in another video, so if you want to check out the link below, you can see where we do the suspension on another Linn LP12. Sorry for that. Put the mat on. And we can do the final adjustments. And I'm just looking at the sight lines, making sure the Keel Subchassis is square in the platter, and that the edges are aligned with the plinth, which they almost are. I'm just going to give that a little, and I'm just looking for a little bounce. That's okay. We'll continue with the rest of the build, but we'll probably readjust this again after the suspension's settled. Alright, so the top of the deck is now complete. We're now going to fit the Urika. So you can see the Urika about to go in, and this is the base of the turntable now. So we've more or less finished now. I just need to fit the hinge brackets on the back here. Alright, so that's the rear hinges fitted, and we are now actually complete. Alright, so there we have it. That's the complete build of a Bedrok LP12, going from a previous generation LP12 Plinth. All that remains for us now to do is to do the final calibration, to set the tracking force, etc., the height of the tonearm in the collar, and just do the final tweaks on the deck before it's ready to go. Hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, if you are interested in upgrading your LP12 and you want to see and hear any of the products in the Linn range, I welcome you to Ripcaster to come and see and hear them for yourself. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.